Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Daiku No Gen-San 2, or also known as Hammerin Harry 2 if it was released outside of Japan, but unfortunately it only saw release in Japan. The game is very similar to the original Daiku No Gen-San, where you're playing as the carpenter Gen. You have a rival this time that shows up and takes your girl, and now you're of course off to get her back. So here we go with Daiku No Gen-San 2 for the Famicom. Just like the other Hammerin Harry, or the original Daiku No Gen-San, you do have to beat the game twice in order to see the true ending, which is what we'll be doing during the course of this run. Controls for the game are very simple. Gen is able to jump and use his hammer. You can hold down in order to slam the hammer into the ground, or hit up in order to hold it above you and hit enemies that way, just like the original game. There's a handful of items you can collect, like extra defense, extra health, and a few other things that you'll find. Here we reach the first level boss. We're going to jump up in the air doing our slam down attack with our hammer. Just stay close and keep doing it over and over again, and he'll go down in just a few seconds. Level number 2 has us climbing up and up. Start working your way up, dealing with the enemies along the way. You can either hold up or just get ready to attack at the right moments to hit these enemies as they're flying all around the screen. Here you can take out this guy on the ladder itself as you continue to climb up. Watch out for the falling objects as you work your way around the platforms and up. I have to say, the best thing about the Daiku No Gen-San series, or Hammerin Harry series, is it's pretty satisfying to take out enemies using the giant hammer. For this boss, you need to wait for the wrecking ball to be thrown off of the chain, and then you're going to hit it in his direction. If you do it correctly, you'll make contact and do damage, and you just gotta rinse and repeat until he's done. Each time that you end up dealing with the wrecking ball, he'll then jump between the two machines. When he does this, he's going to throw a bunch of projectiles at you, so usually I wait a little bit on the one side, wait for him to start throwing the projectiles, then walk to the other side. It's a little bit of a lengthy fight just because you have to do it this way, but once it's taken care of, we're moving on to level number 3. Before level 3, we have a bonus game where you have to hit these various characters in these windows. You don't want to hit your girlfriend though, you'll end up losing a point then. The better you do, the better the prize that you end up getting. You get some items as a reward for completing the mini games. As we begin level number 3, what you want to do is immediately start walking to the right with your invincibility frames, and then get out of the lava that way, just to make things a little bit easier at the start here. Be very careful of these openings on the pipes spewing out fire, as well as the lava being built up below. For these enemies, wait till they turn around and start going the other direction, and then go for the attack. Interestingly enough, you can actually attack them from the front and hit them before they hit you. The hit detection's a little bit weird with them, but sometimes you can actually hit them before you run directly into their flame, even from the front, like that. Be careful dropping down here before continuing over to the right side. More fire and more enemies to deal with along the way. Just keep on jumping and steadily make your way. Be careful on here, they do sink into the lava when you stay on for too long, so wait for the fire to dissipate before continuing on to the boss battle. For this boss, when he jumps to the front, we're going to attack him a couple of times, then jump over him as he starts to throw out his projectiles, hopefully avoiding most of them as they go around. Then get back on the elephant and repeat the process. You can stay underneath of him in order to avoid the other attacks that he ends up doing. One of the tougher fights, honestly, I think, just because it's hard to actually land your hits, but once he's taken care of, we're moving on to the next level. Stage number 4 is a train-themed level here as we make our way across slowly. Watch out for the flying birds overhead, as well as these robots that sit up and start firing after they do sit up. You can use their legs to then jump over the head and get away from them. There are 2 other types of mallets you can pick up in the game, the big mallet as well as the roundabout mallet that you swing when you use it. Both are useful for different situations. You have to love, probably the best opportunity for this evil scientist and rival to take us down is these robots, but instead of having us face them, he has them strapped to the vehicle being transported, and we just bypass them altogether. For this boss, the boss itself will throw out bubbles, and you have to bounce on the bubbles or jump on the bubbles, and then jump up in the air in order to hit the boss. Hit him a couple of times, then bounce back to the original platform, and then just keep repeating that process until the boss is taken care of. It doesn't take too many hits, just a few in order to drop him. Here we have our next minigame where these enemies are bouncing down from the ceiling. Just keep moving back and forth and swinging your hammer as you do so, and you'll be able to hit quite a lot of them within the time limit. There were several other Daiku No Gen-San games, and I'm sure I'll get to some of them in the future, including ones from the Nintendo Game Boy, as well as one that was released the same year as this one for the Super Famicom. The last of the series was a PlayStation Portable title that was a pretty enjoyable game overall, and I remember seeking it out specifically just because I was a fan of the series. Level number 5 has some conveyor belts at the start. We're going to duck underneath this one here. Make your way over to the right, wait for the projectiles to go away before you jump between some of the platforms. Sometimes you may need to wait twice for the fire to go by before you attempt your jump. Over here to the right side, go inside the elevator and take it up to the next floor. From there, just head over to the left side. You have these hooks that will go up and down trying to hit you, as well as some regular enemies bouncing around. Thankfully, your hammer swing should have no problem dealing with them. Here we end up getting the hammer that swings all about. Over here to the left is another one of the elevators that we're going to take up to the next floor. As you're making your way over to the right side, we're going to grab the big hammer upgrade. This is the one you actually really want for this upcoming boss fight. The twirling hammer isn't a good thing to have for the upcoming one. Just keep moving around the conveyor belt, watching out and don't get crushed. If one of the bottom plates isn't directly underneath the crusher, it's not going to come down on you and won't hurt you. Be careful at the end and then go off screen in order to get into the boss chamber. For this boss, you can stomp on the ground or get up close to hit him. Either way, you want to knock him onto this platform and he'll get squashed by the machine. Do this several times and the boss will be taken care of. Just keep dodging all of the debris that's falling from the ceiling. When you swing your hammer, you end up having a brief invincibility spat, so you can use that a lot of times as the debris is falling. You just let it bypass you as you're slamming your hammer. The next two levels are scrolling shoot-'em-up style of levels. You have your one attack at your disposal, throwing your hammer, but you also can pick up power-ups to give you a secondary attack. For the most part, as far as a scrolling shooter style level goes, this one's pretty straightforward. The only thing really kind of different is the hammer ability that you have. You kind of get used to it, throwing it out like a boomerang and then having it wrap back around through enemies. This is definitely a favorite of mine as far as Famicom exclusive games go, and there's quite a few Famicom exclusive games out there that are actually a lot of fun, that it's disappointing that a bunch of them never made it to North America. What, if any, Famicom exclusive games are some of your favorites to play? Are your favorites that you discovered over the years? This attack is a little bit useful because it's able to kind of go up and down at the same time, the spread shot, but usually I prefer just the straight shot like this one. Just a few more enemies and area left to go before we end up blasting off into the boss chamber. For this boss, he protects himself as you have to wait for him to open up and attack the middle area, attacking the rival guy. You can use your hammer or your projectile shots, whichever one you prefer. Just kind of keep moving in between the various bullets as they're firing out. It takes a little bit of time just because you don't have that much opportunity to actually land shots. Thankfully though, the bullets here go pretty slowly as we battle him. Next up is the final of the minigames. This one has balls flying out of the left and right sides, and you just have to hit them with your hammer. Try to hit as many as you possibly can within the time limit. Relatively easy and simple mini game, but more enjoyable, I think, than some of the ones from Hammerin Harry 1 or Daiku No Gen-San 1. Stage number 7 is another scrolling shoot-'em-up style of level. It also happens to be the second to last stage in the game before we go on to the last level here. The fly enemies can be a little bit annoying just because they're difficult to actually land your hits on. This weapon here, as you can see, dive bombs missiles to the ground and then they trace the ground, taking out enemies, which here can be a bit useful. The boss fight for this level is just a gauntlet against a bunch of random enemies from the stage. So you want to make sure you have whichever of the sub-weapons you prefer going into that fight. Here we make it to a gauntlet against these bugs. You just have to kind of keep moving, watching out for the debris, and fire out your weapons. Do your best to keep hitting the purple bugs, and after you destroy enough of them, we'll be able to move on. Some of the bugs can be difficult to actually land your hits on. And when you're dodging, I just kind of fire the missiles a bunch. This isn't the best attack to have. Usually the ground missiles, the ones I had just before, are pretty good before this fight. Your other missiles just end up missing a lot of the time. It also takes several hits in order to take out one of these bugs before they end up flying off screen, which can also be difficult to do. Now, once we complete this area, it isn't quite over yet. Instead, you have another gauntlet against some robots in the next area coming up. As we begin the last area of level number 7, we're going to start off by heading off over to the right side, climb on up and deal with this beaker. You want to hit it a couple of times, 3 times specifically if you're using the regular base hammer, and then jump over the flames as they shoot out. Here we're going to grab the big power-up hammer in order to help us through the rest of the area here. You can swing it at the glass and it just breaks instantly with one swing, so be prepared to jump. Here you're going to watch out for the electricity coming out of the various tubes as you slowly go underneath. Right after this, we have more things where we have to wait for the electricity to dissipate before attempting to run across them. As we reach the end here is the boss Gauntlet against a bunch of robots. You can either slam your hammer down if you have the big hammer, or just keep moving back and forth left and right and destroy the various robots until they're all taken care of. And we're moving on to the 8th and final level of the game. The 8th level is the toughest level for sure because you have to climb up as it's scrolling up, and you don't have a whole lot of opportunity to jump between the various platforms. You'll notice like ladders in the background and the like, you can't grab a hold of them, it's just the platforms that you're dealing with. If you go off screen, of course, it is a loss of life, so you have to be extra cautious. Always ready to jump to that next platform. If these lasers see you, a missile is launched and will start flying towards you. Thankfully, you can destroy the missile swinging your hammer, just time it right. By far the hardest platforming that we've done in the game. Have to dodge a bunch of lasers here as we make our way up to the top. We're almost there. Jump between these platforms and hit the ladder. Thankfully we can actually grab a hold of this one. Then quickly jump over the platforms and onto the next ladder on the left side. Once we reach the top, we're going to go over to the right side and jump on the elevator, and the elevator is going to take us up into the final boss encounter. For the Doctor Boss, we're going to attack him immediately, and then when he gets into the air, we're going to jump up and do our up attack in order to hit him while he's in the air. You can also swing sometimes with your normal swing just to hit him as well. As he comes back down, continue hitting him, and it doesn't take too many hits in order to drop the boss, and we're enjoying the first ending to Daiku No Gen-San 2. So after the brief ending, we then go back to level number 1 and start things over again. This time it's a little bit tougher for sure. Enemies are a bit faster, and things are just a bit more difficult. Our strategies, though, are going to pretty much remain the same between the two playthroughs. The swinging hammer here is always fun to use. I do enjoy the soundtrack for both of the Daiku No Gen-San games on the Famicom, as well as the other games in the series. Here we reach the end of the first level again against this boss. We're going to jump up in the air and keep swinging our hammer in order to deal with him. If you swing it at the right time, you can actually protect yourself from some of the projectiles, as you have those invincibility frames you can use to get past a few of them. Once the boss is taken care of, though, we're moving on to level number 2. Just like before, we're going to be climbing on up. The enemies that fly back and forth in the level can be a little bit more of a nuisance this time around than they were the first time around, but still it isn't overall that much more difficult this time. Are you a fan of classic games that made you play them multiple times in order to see the true best ending? Or did you prefer to just be able to get the best ending in a single playthrough or on any of the difficulties, if there were difficulty choices? I always liked the idea as long as the ending was different in a significant way compared to the original ending. If beating the game again gives you like a true, much better ending, then yeah, it's worth going through. But there are some games, plenty of them out there, where you have that, and then the ending isn't any better, in fact, sometimes worse, than the first ending you ended up getting. Here we reach the top, and it's time for the rematch against this rival on the machine. And he's going to throw those wrecking balls at us, and we're going to bounce them right at him, hitting him directly if we can. After he jumps, we're going to go underneath of his projectiles and go to the opposite side and get ready to swing at the next of the wrecking balls. Just like before, it's going to take a little while, but once he's taken care of, we're moving on to the bonus game before level number 3. Just like before, we're going to hit the various people that show up in the windows, watching out for the girlfriend to make sure we don't accidentally hit her with a hammer. It's not a good thing to hit your girlfriend with a hammer. Stage number 3, as we begin with the fire, we're going to walk over to the right side and then jump up immediately onto the pipes above. Just like last time, watching out for the various flame that come out. These guys are actually a little bit easier this time around because they move a little faster. You can get behind them a little quicker. Be careful of the lava when it's filling up below, that you don't accidentally fall down into it. Doing the downward swing can sometimes be very effective in case you're about to get hit by an enemy. Be very careful at the end of the sinking platforms as you make your way across and then over to the right to get to the boss fight. Just like before with the boss, we're going to jump on top of the elephant, attack him from the front when he jumps there, hit him a few times, and then jump over him when he starts throwing the hammers. If you time it right, you can avoid those hammers and be able to get to the other side and hit him a few times before he ends up going back into the machine and starting the whole process over again. With him taken care of, we're moving on to level number 4. Level 4 is the train-themed level where we will have the scrolling stage. There's a lot of scrolling train levels back on the NES. You look at so many classic platformers and action games, there were just so many that ended up having some sort of train-themed stage. One of the hardest ones for me always when I was really young was the train level in Little Nemo. Such a great game, but a difficult one for sure, and the train alone was probably my least favorite level because I would get stuck there a lot. Just keep watching out for the robots as they sit up and try to fire out their guns towards you. Thankfully, you have an opportunity to get onto their legs and then over them before they're really able to sit up and actually fire. Here we reach the end. It's time for the next boss encounter. Wait for the bubbles to be fired out by the giant seahorse and then jump to them and then up into the air in order to hit the ball several times before then going back safely to the land spot on the left side. Wait for the bubbles and then jump back to them and jump in the air to finish off the boss with a couple of more hits. And we're moving on to the next level and a bonus stage before that. This is the one with the springs and the enemies flying all around at you. Just keep on moving back and forth and swinging your hammer, and you should be able to hit almost all of them pretty easily. As stage number 5 begins in the factory, we're going to head over to the right side. Duck underneath here and continue over with a jump to the right. Just make sure you hold right as you do that one jump. Be careful when you duck underneath of here, it's easy to kind of get sent off into the pit right next to it. Be careful of the various projectiles being fired out as you're making your way between the platforms and then over to the elevator on the far right side. Take the elevator up and then over to the left. Watch out for the hooks and other enemies that are going to come your way as you're making your way over to the left. When we make it to the end, go into the next elevator and take that one up to the top. Once again on the top floor, we're going to watch out for the pressers as we make our way to the right. Don't get crushed by them as the machine is moving. Make sure you grab the big hammer upgrade so you have that for the upcoming boss encounter. When the little robot or whatever it is gets destroyed into a million pieces, it can actually hurt you, so be careful of the pieces when they break up. For the boss, I'm immediately going to go into my swing, and you can see you can stomp him into the machine and easily crush him that way. I'm going to stay on the left side this time around and show you that if you time it right, you can swing through the projectiles that are raining down from the ceiling very easily. Sometimes they come down too quickly and you won't be able to time it right, but you should be able to do it enough in order to take down the boss and move on to the next level. Next up is the scrolling shoot 'em up stages. First one, the one in the jungle, it's just pretty much like before. The enemies may be a little bit quicker, I guess, this time around, but it's still pretty much the same kind of ordeal that you're dealing with. Get whatever of the sub-weapons or secondary weapons that you like, and then kind of just stick with that one throughout. Some of them, like I said, work better for certain situations than others. When the PSP game of Daiku No Gen-San, or Hammerin Harry, came out, they actually released an anime to go along with it in Japan. It was a webisode anime. It was only like 9 minutes long, but there were 24 episodes created for it. Thankfully, we're almost at the end of the area before we take on the next boss battle. Just like before with the boss, we have to wait for him to open up, and then we're able to attack him straight on, either using our special move or our hammer. This time around, I'm going to use the missiles that shoot diagonally to help us out. Just a different strategy that you can take for the boss. When I can't land the missiles, I just go for my normal hammer shots. The whole time, just keep on dodging projectiles. A lot of times, I'll just keep my eyes on Gen instead of the boss, to make sure that I can see all the projectiles that are coming my way, and I can see kind of out of the peripheral vision the boss actually taking damage and the like. Once the boss is taken care of, we have another bonus game before moving on to stage number 7. This is the one where we get to hit the various balls that are coming out of both the left and right sides. A little bit of a stress reliever, kind of like the last one as well. Just kind of keep moving back and forth and swinging your hammer wildly and hitting the various balls. On to the next level, level number 7 here, the second of the 2 scrolling shooter levels. Just like before, just slowly moving our way through. Watch out for the annoying fly enemies that are a little bit difficult to actually land a hit against. Honestly, I think this level, for the most part, is easier than the one we just dealt with in level 6, as far as the enemies are concerned. I think it's a little bit easier to dodge them and just deal with them in this stage than that one. Thankfully, we make it to the end, and it's time to battle the various bugs in this gauntlet of trash. Watch out for all of it falling down, and just keep firing your weapon in order to damage the ones on the ground. It's quite a lot of them that you have to deal with during this situation, so just kind of keep on moving and find a nice safe spot. Usually I prefer the left side here, and that gives me at least a little bit of space to work with on the right with a lot of the enemies. Once we destroy enough of them though, the door opens up and we're moving on to the next part of the level. Just like before, as we begin, we're going to head over to the right side, jump on up, and then deal with the beakers and flames. Hit them a couple of times, and then be sure to jump out of the way so you don't accidentally get burned by them. Watch out once again for the electricity coming out of the various tubes. Deal with a couple of enemies as well. I always love having projectiles or stuff on screen and then slowly watching it go across the screen as I go as well. Sometimes you can actually outrun them. It's just funny nonetheless. Here we reach the end. It's time to deal with the robot gauntlet. Just going to do the stomp with the hammer and make things really easy for us. And we're moving on to the final level of the game. Stage 8 is just as difficult as before. I guess this time it's more difficult, but it's mostly just worrying about the platforming as you work your way up. Being very, very, very careful not to accidentally fall, or you will end up losing a life. Just like before, when you hit these, they're going to end up sending missiles flying your way. You can swing at it, thankfully, to destroy them. I'm going to pick up the swinging hammer, the rolling hammer, and we're going to use that for the rest of the level in the boss fight. Be very careful here with the falling platforms. Move slowly across them before then getting to the moving up and down platform there. Almost to the end here, move between these platforms and get over to the ladder on the right and climb on up to the top. Then quickly jump between the platforms again over to the far left side. Grabbing onto another ladder and climb on up there. Once you reach the top, go over to the elevator and into the boss chamber. As the fight begins, he's going to go up into the air, and we're going to immediately get close and start swinging the hammer. Do some jump attacks as well to swing the hammer and keep hitting him. You can thankfully jump between his projectiles relatively easy at the start just because of how slow the game ends up having it go. Just keep focusing on the boss as he is on the left side slowly coming down and finish him off and enjoy the ending to Daiku No Gen-San 2 for the Famicom. So there you have it, the true ending for Daiku No Gen-San 2 on the Famicom, a fun platforming game that I think a lot of people haven't heard of or played before, and one I want to show off for sure. With that though, it's going to wrap up this episode of Play It Through. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.